Thoreau said that the mass of men leave lives of quiet desperation and go to their grave with their song still inside them. Let me make sure I got that right. The mass of men lead lives of quiet desperation and go to the grave with the song still inside them. You know the primary regret of the dying? I wish I had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. Imagine that. You're on your deathbed and you're thinking back, wow, all those things I did or didn't do, trying to please others, or trying to avoid being criticized, or trying to avoid somebody saying this or saying that, or trying to avoid or control what my neighbors think or may think. How pointless and trivial and absurd, and how tragic now that at the end of my life, I'm realizing this, and there's nothing I can do about it, except maybe try to save somebody else from the same fate. This is very insidious because a lot of people don't realize they do this. They pursue jobs and careers, they buy things, they act in a certain way, they say things, they do things, all in a way to live up to the ideal that they think other people have of them. Most people don't even know who they are. Most people have no idea what they want. They have no values. They have no principles. Even their ideas are just a culmination of things that they've read or seen or heard elsewhere, and they haven't put any critical thought into whether any of that makes any sense or not. And so they just float through life like a pinball, bouncing around from this thing to that thing, depending on whatever's going around. And then they're 40, 50 maybe. They have a few kids or whatever. They ask themselves, why am I so unfulfilled? Why am I so unhappy? I have security and money and a car and a garage and a mortgage and this and that. Why am I so miserable? There's a lot of reasons for this. A lot of different rabbit holes to go down. For today, it's about building a life based on your principles. Building your principles for life. What do you believe? How do you want to live life? And then building on top of that so that the things that you do on a daily basis are on purpose, are thought out, and are leading you to where you want to go. This is one of those things that I feel like I should talk about every single day of my life, because the fact that it is so uncommon for somebody to have their own principles and have a plan for their life. It's insane. It's tragic. It's depressing. It's sad. Most people, literally most people, do not ever think about the future they want to get to. They don't consider the things they're doing on a daily basis and whether it's mapped out to any future. They just respond to whatever's going on in their environment. And this makes sense because this is human nature. It's human nature. I don't blame the masses for this. I empathize with them. But again, it's tragic that so many people will reach their deathbed and think the same regret, feel the same regret that everyone does in their deathbed. I wish I would have lived life for myself rather than living a life for others. That is tragic. What a waste of life. And there's nothing you can do. They can't go back. So I hope to save as many people from that fate as possible. I'm going to be spending a lot of time covering this. I'm going to give you an idea today of how to create some principles for your life, what that even looks like, how to build a life on top of that, and really 4 principles for life that really become the foundation of how to think about this and just life in general. So the first principle is every action you take is either something you want to do or something you don't want to do. Everything in your life is something you want to do or you don't want to do. It can get murky because obviously if you do something in your job, you don't really want to do it, but you do it because you want your job or you want to grow or be promoted or whatever, then that would be something you actually want to do. So that's not really what I'm talking about here. It's a lot of things that we do through shame or guilt or fear. We follow certain rote paths. We do certain things. We go to certain things. We say yes to certain things. When really a lot of times we'd probably be better off saying no and controlling actually what we do. So much of human behavior is built on guilt and shame and manipulation. Sometimes it's conscious, sometimes it is subconscious. And if you're going to build a life on your principles, it needs to be based on doing what you want to do as much as possible. 2, every action you take is your choice or it is somebody else's choice. This very much goes in alignment with number 1, of course. But you see people that generally make most of their decisions based on what's going around them or based on what other people are doing. Sometimes they get manipulated into doing things and peer pressured into doing things. And other times they just don't really think about it. They just go with the flow. Going with the flow is how you get sucked into a current and then drown. You don't go with the flow. Captain doesn't get in a ship and say, we're going to go with the flow. You see how absurd that is? Yet it's the standard for life. It's so sad. It's so sad. But being aware of it for you, if you are here listening or watching this, you're lucky because I'm at least opening the door for you. You can walk through if you want. I hope you do. But I'm at least bringing this to your awareness. Whether you do anything with this information or not is going to be up to you. Number 3, If you don't know exactly where you're going, you're not going to get there. And you'll probably end up somewhere you didn't want to go. Very much, again, like the captain in the ship. He doesn't get into a ship and just say, let's just see what happens. Let's just go out in the water and go this way and that way and see where we end up. You have a map, a plan, you have a destination, and you constantly course correct to get there. Did you know that most of the time when you're flying on a plane, it's off course about 97% of the time, right? It's almost never on course. But what happens is the computer continually course corrects. Nudge a little bit this way, nudge a little bit that way. And by doing that potentially hundreds or thousands of times, the plane eventually arrives at a destination. Think about that for your life. It's the exact same thing. You're not expected to have some perfect linear path to know where you're going. You should be very clear about where you want to go, but it's very murky. It's like going into a deep forest where you don't really know what the trail is going to take you, but you know that if you keep going, you'll ideally get out the other end. So you keep going and you constantly course correct. Maybe come back a little bit. Maybe you go forward a little bit. Maybe you hit a dead end. You realize that's not a good place to go. So you come back, you backtrack, then you take another way. You take the fork to the left instead of the right, or vice versa. If you don't know where you're going, if you don't have a general idea of where you're going, and I like to be very specific with your goals, with everything, be very specific, but even a general idea of the life you want that you can kind of imagine. It's better if you can imagine it crystal clear, but if you can even kind of imagine it, you're still a step in the right direction. A lot of people don't even think about where they're going to be in 5 years. They just literally, they have a job, they have this, they do that, they have hobbies, they have whatever. And then it's just like, well, whatever happens, happens. And that's why generally these people stay in the same place their entire lives. That's not the life you want, trust me. And then finally, number 4, if you don't create a value system based on principles for your life, somebody's going to create it for you. You have to decide what matters to you. You have to form your own beliefs. You have to be willing to say, this is what I believe, I'm sticking to it. And then you build your life on top of that. Like I said, what do most people do? They just mimic what other people say, or they do things that they think other people think they should do. It's really crazy, the mental defect that we have in this way. It served our ancestors well when we lived as hunter-gatherers. But now that we live in a modern world where we don't live in small tribes anymore, where now everybody on the internet has an opinion, for better or worse, we fall into major traps. And that's why being aware of these things, building your value system, building your principles, and then being crystal clear with your goals based on the type of life you want to live is paramount. This should be like what you are taught in kindergarten. They should have Cat in the Hat books based on goal setting and things like that, right? But, of course, schooling is nothing but indoctrination camps. So Emerson said, to be yourself in a world that is constantly trying to make you something else is the greatest accomplishment. So true. I recommend reading this whole article. I'm not going to go into all of it right now. So each one of these principles of building a life based on your own principles on purpose, so that you do things on purpose, so that you know where you're going, so that you don't let people outside of you dictate your life for you. These are all things that you're going to have to work on in different degree on your own time. Wherever you find this will be an article connected. I recommend you read that whole thing for sure. But let me just give you a quick overview of what my principles are and what my goals are based on those principles so that you can get an idea to think about this for yourself. So my goal for a while now has been $1 million in liquid assets, whether that's gold, crypto, or stocks. And then the secondary goal is to have enough income from those assets to pay for my lifestyle. And what that gives me is often called FU money, meaning no matter what, I can't get canceled, I can't get fired. I do whatever I want, whenever I want, every single day of my life. You don't need $1 million to do this, though. This is a beautiful thing. Like, let's say you're a freelancer, a video editor, graphic designer, copywriter, writer, anything. You can basically have the same thing because no matter if a client fires you or you even get a job or you're working as a contractor and you get fired or whatever, you can just get somebody else. You can live anywhere and do your work, anywhere with an internet connection. So in the same way, you can have the autonomy and the freedom, an amazing location independent lifestyle, which many are doing. And you can use your skills to pay for that. You don't need millions of dollars. You don't even need tens of thousands of dollars. You just need skills and knowledge, a little bit of hustle, and then you fashion your life around those tools. Maybe you want to live the remote lifestyle. Maybe you want to live in Thailand for a while. Maybe you want to stay in your hometown, but you just don't want to go into the office. Whatever it is. You don't need $1 million to do this. So that's my disclaimer for that. For me, this is more than just that. It's security. It's having opportunity to do certain things to protect my family, etc. So $1 million is my number. It's basically this lifestyle. I can travel anywhere I want, whenever I want. I can take the whole family if I want. My goal is to keep my expenses under my income so that I can do whatever I want. So I truly have the FU money per se. And I have 100% autonomy and freedom to do what I want. Right now, I'm pretty close to 100% autonomy. I'm still CEO of a company, though I do work wherever I want, whenever I want. I do have a lot of flexibility with that being the CEO. I end up working more anyways. And so it's not like nobody's telling me to work, right? I have certain goals connected to that. So I do, right? But I can still go anywhere. I was just in Florida last week. I decided to just take a road trip by myself. Anywhere there's internet, I got my iPad, I got my laptop, good to go. I do my remote meetings. I literally did it from my iPhone in the car where they pull up a spreadsheet on Google Hangouts and I could comment on what we were talking about right in the car as my buddy was driving to the gun shop. It's incredible. It's incredible what you can do with this technology and with the internet if you use it and if you have principles. So my assets will grant me security no matter what happens to the American economy, no matter whether the dollar collapses, no matter whether we have crazy martial law, doesn't matter. Those assets are my primary rainy day and emergency fund. It's also my FU money. It gives me the freedom to do whatever I want, whenever I want. And it's been years in the making. Been doing this entrepreneur thing for years now. These specific goals are based on a few things I believe about life. These aren't all inclusive, but these are kind of the things related to work and time. So the first thing is, time is the most important thing in life. You're not ever going to get more. Time is the most important thing in life. So if I were to spend my time doing things I didn't want to do or doing work I didn't want to do, I'd be wasting the most important thing in life. Having complete control over what I do when I do it is extremely important to me. It's important to everybody, but I just recognized it early that I don't like working for people or doing things I don't want to do. I don't say yes or travel to events or do things, even when given the opportunity. I generally don't. Life is short, again, connected to time. Relationships are the only thing that really matters at the end, followed closely by the work you did and the impact you had. That matters as well. But as far as life satisfaction, happiness goes, it's all found in your relationships. And so the other point of having the money and the flexibility to travel and do these things is so that I can include the people I care about into my life as much as possible, so that I can spend as much time as possible with my family and friends. You don't need millions of dollars to do that. Even $1 million nowadays, nothing. You're like poor rich. You're like rich poor, poor rich. You don't need that. If I started all over and you gave me $1,000 in my bank account, I would freelance. I would find some clients. I would get my income going. And then I would probably go to a country that's really cheap to live, maybe Philippines, somewhere South America, Mexico. And then I would use the internet connection and just try to make as much money as possible over my living expenses from my US-based freelance work. And I would just keep doing that, saving, growing, maybe increasing my clientele, maybe build a business, maybe launch a product. That's what I would do. Within 6 months, I would have a solid new plan for a prosperous future. And that's why it all comes down to up here, knowledge and then principles. And you marry those together and you're unstoppable. You will live a fulfilled, amazing, happy, healthy life. And it will be on your own terms, because that's really the only way to live a happy, fulfilled life is on your own terms. If you follow the rote path that society set out, you're not going to be happy. You just aren't. And this applies to everything. It's amazing how backwards the things that are common or that you're supposed to do, just how backwards they are. It's insane how bad it is. I mean, everything from relationships to how you should invest your money, to how you spend your money, to consumerism, to social media use, to what food you eat or shouldn't eat, to how socially acceptable it is to drink, and how if you don't drink and you tell people that, they look at you like you're crazy, and like things like that. In some ways, a place like America is just one big tribe that follows a lot of the same things. And then you have pockets the more down and specific you go, of course. Your best chance at a great life is to think differently, to do differently, to pick and choose what you like and ignore everything you don't, and seek 100% autonomy and freedom so that you can control your time. You're not a debt slave. You're not a tax slave. You're not a corporate slave. You're 100% in control of your life. That's the reason you need to build a life on top of principle. So if you want more like this, go over to colin.coach, get on the AM5 newsletter. You can also find this on YouTube and anywhere you find podcasts. The Shut Up No One Cares, Get Back to Work podcast. That's going to be it for today. I'll see you in the next one.